if you saw our last speaker, he spoke with a lot of passion.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get started. How's my audio? Very good. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm going to introduce Andrew Hansen, and he's going to introduce the panelists here today. This is a hero's journey, evolving master data strategies for success. And Andrew, I think, has a title that is both enviable and fitting for this, which is that he is a senior master data product strategist. Fantastic. At Moody's Analytics. He's got 10 years experience at Moody's in exactly this area, and I think that he'll have a good roster of commentary for you today. So Andrew, I want to hand it over to you.
All right, thank you. So yes, as we discussed, we're going to be talking about the hero's journey for master data, which I think is relevant for a lot of the conversations that have been had in these sessions over the last 48 hours, right? Everyone seems to be having the common conversation around how do I tell the story of driving ROI in the business? How do I tell the story of connecting data to business objectives? How do I really get the fundamentals down and tell the importance of the fundamentals to the business to improve our processes? So we have a really good panel here today, comprised of a variety of different people. And rather than having me run down and talk about everyone individually, I thought it would be good for everyone to test their microphones and give a quick introduction to themselves, a bit of their background, some of their key takeaways maybe from the event so far. And then we're going to open it up with some questions as well. So we have about 4 questions prepped and some takeaways. But we want to make this a little bit more interactive. So please interject at any time if you have any anecdotes, any additional insights that you want to add. And we will go from there. So first, I will pass it over to Ryan.
Hi everyone. I'm Ryan Applegate with the Mathworks. It's a local software company. So if you're local, you've probably heard us on NPR. So I've been with the Mathworks for about 20 years, been doing this for a little over 30 now. I've, as I said, we've been with the Mathworks for 20 years, and it's been a journey for over 20 years. We've been trying to get this right within the company. And so in our panel today, I guess I get to be the hero because I am the practitioner. And so really we've had this long journey of trying to really nail down account data. How do you get it to be right so that everyone's satisfied? Because we would do tons of work on trying to make changes to the technology, and it would be good for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden you ask people, hey, how's the data quality? How's the account data? It's garbage. And then you crestfallen, and you go back and you try it again. So I'm here to answer any questions you have about how I've been trying to do this and what we've been doing recently.
Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Rushabh Mehta. So I have been on the data practitioner side for over 25 years, mainly helping with building analytical solutions, master data solutions, and so on. Worked with companies starting from Equifax way back in 1998, where I built my first BI analytical solution. And then onwards, I worked with a number of large companies like Raymond James Financial, Microsoft, US Department of Defense, and many, many others along the way. One of the biggest things I realized when it comes to data is data quality is a big challenge, but so is data mastering. But also when we look at the data journey, there's a lot of data that's actually coming from outside the organization. And this is coming from a variety of sources, whether it's commercial data sources like Moody's, whether it's non-commercial or public data. All of those play a very vital role, not only in business processes, but also in decision making. So fast forward today, I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Matchbook AI. And Matchbook AI is the world's first and only true external data management platform that allows you to connect all of your different business use cases and decision processes to various external data sources. And it also supports things like data mastering as part of that journey of that data that comes into your enterprise downstream. So would love to talk more about that as we go along, but I'll hand over to Lakshmi.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lakshmi Randall. I oversee industry product marketing at Informatica, where actually your data comes to life. And product marketing is an essential function of go-to-market strategy. So in my role, I value business value and business impact driven by Informatica Intelligent Data Management Cloud. So always starting with the business driver and the underlying use cases, and what are the essential capabilities that you need to enable those use cases. Then finally comes the technology piece. With that, I would like to ask the audience one question. How many of you had this experience where your medical claim was declined for the first time, then you were able to call and address the problem, and then it was finally paid off? How many of? Pretty much everyone in this room, right? See, that's master data because they don't have your latest insurance information, right? So how do you deliver better patient experience? That's one of the use cases of master data. With that, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Lakshmi. I'm Steve Kleinmann. I work at Moody's Analytics as an industry practice lead. And my role there is to engage with our clients to better understand their requirements in this area of data management and enabling their business processes and better decision-making outcomes using not just their internal first-party master data, but enriching that data with Moody's data to make those better decisions. So my background is from many years of being a practitioner along with my colleagues here as a consultant. So doing this on the front lines, helping customers set up data governance platforms and processes, master data management, selling it to the executive board to get the funding to engage the company on a transformation journey. So I've done that several times across different industries. So I bring all those learnings to my clients to help them understand best practices, and then I turn around and understand the client's priorities and how we can better improve our products to help our clients.
Hi, I'm Sita. I'm also an industry practice lead focusing on the data journey, I like to call it as. And have 20 plus years of experience focusing mainly with clients, right? To help clients understand what the data flows, what its impact is to the business, right? End of the day, if it has no impact to the business, then master data is an absolute. It's just a thing out there that's not out there. So help them. So with that in mind, that's why we have a panel of 3 people here, one from the client side of things, that we start the data from an onboarding perspective. Data comes in, and what's the first thing we need to do? If you don't have data that's becoming accurate and complete right there, then that data is of no use, right? So we started there, the journey. Then we said, okay, how does it go into an MDM platform? And you saw that Lakshmi is there from the Informatica side, right? What are some of the data that fuels the MDM to help drive like a spokesperson for the use case? And in between, we have a layer that helps transform that. And that's where our system integrator, Rushabh with Matchbook AI, which does much more than that, but brings it to life, from both sides of the fence. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew to drive the.
I guess I should have put everyone's pictures up there too. Okay, sorry about that. So, first question, and I don't know if anyone can read this out there or see that on their screens, but where are you on your MDM hero's journey? So, just curious from the panelists first, and then opening it up to the audience as well. And is this right in the right order here? Well, that's all right. Where are you on the MDM hero's journey? Convincing leadership to consider MDM. Just started, deep into the first journey, handling challenges. MDM is live or on my next iteration, realizing that the second go around, the third go around, the fourth go around, it's going to get easier and easier. So, Ryan, I think maybe you'd be good to kick this one off.
Sure. Well, first of all, any Hobbit fans? Movie, book? All right, you're all with me then. So when we heard the topic, I was like, hero's journey. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, The Hobbit. Because it really ties to this, because you start off, you're trying to just get going, you're looking for an adventure to make a change, and then there's 100 different things that happen. There's all the convincing, there's all the legwork that's to be done. You have to bring all the people together. to do this when you're doing it at enterprise level. So for me, I've just gotten into the cave and slaying the dragon. When I think of that, it's a technology. We have it up, we have it running, we're getting ready to use it. But if I go back, when you remember The Hobbit, that's about 60% of the way through the book. And then it really gets messy after that. So they kill a dragon, you get it going. And then for us, what I'm looking at right now is the people and the process. So how do I get all the salespeople up and running and using it? How do I get data stewards together and they're working and they're doing verification on the account data that we have? So I'm looking at this and saying, been through a really long road of getting there, and now I'm just looking, there's another plateau that we have to get up through.
And just asking the audience as well, in terms of everyone in this room, I guess for option one of just starting to commence leadership, is anyone in that boat? No. Okay. How about deep into the first iteration? Everyone's experienced practitioners here, I guess. So it sounds like everyone probably has a pretty experienced MDM background and maybe is on their 5th, 6th, 7th generation, who knows. But good to know as well. So any other commentary from the panel on this item here?
I would ask the audience, what is your business goal, right? Is it driving growth or compliance or reducing cost? Maybe if few of you can share your business goals or the drivers behind the MDM initiatives, that would be great.
Anyone interested? Maybe? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, no problem. No, I think for us, it's definitely about driving growth and reducing cost, improving interoperability of our systems, and those are the primary drivers for us.
Makes sense. Anyone else?
So I do have a question around MDM. So within your enterprise, where are you seeing the most success with an MDM implementation? Is it at a departmental level or a business unit level, or is it at an enterprise level? And do you see that distinction within your enterprise, or it really is enterprise level for you? Just curious if anyone has.
Tony's back. Here we go.
No, I think for us, I mean, I think we're relatively early stage, but for us, it is enterprise. That is the objective, right? We're not using it at enterprise scale right now. It's primarily driving a lot of our digital uses right now, but obviously with a longer roadmap to make it more pervasive throughout the ecosystem.
Yeah, just from my experience, I've seen, so we work with a number of Fortune companies as well, where they are more on a use case level MDM, whether it's just within the sales and marketing or it's within their supplier piece of it as well. And a lot of times they're still struggling with just getting that right. And so I do see that even within Fortune companies, well-established companies. And obviously, I think when we get into things like large companies, there's mergers, acquisitions, that always makes this journey more interesting, I think.
Yeah, my 2 cents is good decisions made with bad data are bad decisions that you are not aware of, right? So delivering that high quality, trusted, reliable data is extremely important. How much time is spent cleaning, reconciling, and fixing the data, right, by line of business or even data practitioners, right? So MDM should aim to address it, and that's where cost reduction comes from, because you're saving efforts, number of FTEs, maybe because some of this is automated, right? You're saving time because it's accelerating whatever business initiative you're working on. But most importantly, it needs to tie to a business driver of improving customer experience, right? Or improving operational efficiency, or driving growth, or increasing wallet share, depending on your industry. If you just say, I'm reducing cost, and the CFO might say, you know what, that means you don't need 2 more people part of your team, right? I mean, but you have to show some revenue generation, growth, value proposition as well, and that way you're actually delivering more value to the organization with the MDM. I also say you need to activate the master data. So it's once you build the master data MDM, how do you activate it? How do you make merchandising line of business use the data? Or how do you provision the data to marketing, right? Or the inventory team, or the product management team, or your customer service team? How do you activate the data so it's democratized and leveraged across various business processes and various business functions so that they can benefit from it? Those are all the ways to convince your management to invest in master data.
Yeah, I think that's why we switched slides here, because there's a whole list of things that we've seen in the industry as far as ourselves as well as our customers, where they're trying to justify this to get funding, right? So that's executive level funding to make a transformation to the company. And a lot of times the driver is as simple as like, well, we're doing a SAP for HANA. Well, you can't start that without clean data, right? It's imperative. So, you need to have better structured data, master data lined up so that when you start that program, it's going to be running good. So there's so many reasons, right? The inefficiencies are just one, but that trust in the data, I think someone said, the word governance is not maybe the best term nowadays. We should maybe consider data trust as being a better term to engage the users so that they don't think they're being policed by the data police to try to fix problems, but they're actually doing it for a reason because they need the trust in the data. And then, we've got a lot of clients doing this in the financial sector because they'll get fined a lot of money and under regulatory pressures, or there's reputational risks, right? If you don't understand the fraud. So there's so many reasons to avoid challenges, as well as reasons that you could understand your customers on those journeys to better give them the right offer at the right time. So try to consider both sides of the equation when you're trying to sell this to your executives, especially the CFO, right? It's not just about cost savings, it's about how you can increase the revenues.
Yeah, so I mean, I can, from my perspective of dealing with this, I'm in marketing. And so when I say data quality, it's really about all communications and things like that. That doesn't get anyone's interest. I'm not big enough to handle it. So we had to approach it, we had to go at an enterprise level. So we had to, how do you get all the different groups involved? And so from a compliance level, the software that we sell is regulated. You can't sell it to just anybody. So you have to go through all the regulations of making sure the company that you're selling it to is not on a list that is going to be declined. The other big thing that we were going through is there's a transformation in our revenue model. So we were going from a transactional software unit sale to enterprise level sales. And at the enterprise level, you're going, instead of selling to, in our case, an engineer or a small engineering group, you're selling to a company. And you're selling to a large company that will have divisions and things like that. It's a very complex organization. And so we went from being able to handle a transactional level to all of a sudden, we need to know if the division in India should have access to a software because it's all based on the server. So we needed to actually get our data clean enough and be able to work with the companies to show them that we had control over that. So it was really, for us, it was a confluence of many different factors. Probably all of these had come together, and that's when we really took advantage of it to say this is why we need to make a change.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions or comments, anecdotes on this item from the group?
I think other sessions have kind of justified all these in spades. Right?
Fair enough. Sure.
How do you think AI is going to impact master data or data management?
We have people dialing in, so if folks can have their questions in the microphone, that'd be great. Thank you.
How do you think that AI, really the utilization, the growing utilization, right? It's been around for a long time, but with ChatGPT, how do you think that's going to impact data management and master data?
I can go first. So there are two different dimensions to it, right? How do you accelerate implementation of MDM, right? So that there are capabilities that can be augmented via AI and ML engine, for example, learning, trained on the data, learning to match attributes, to give you an example, or doing schema matching automatically, or entity matching automatically, right? So AI ML can actually augment some of these capabilities and accelerate the road to MDM. So that's on the supply side, right? On the consumption side, you could have NL-driven access to master data, right? Who are the customers that are switching from my brand, right? What's the relationship between this healthcare organization and the healthcare provider? So you can ask questions like that using natural language, and master data should be able to provide those answers, right? So it's actually both sides of the coin, supply side as well as the consumption side. So that's what I see AI. But the major benefit will come from supply side, just the ability to accelerate implementation of MDM with the automation capabilities, intelligence, leveraging the rich of metadata that's available in your organization, right? So metadata is going to be critical aspect of augmentation and delivering that automation capabilities, leveraging AI and machine learning, right? So it will use that intelligence to drive that automation.
Yeah, also on the consumption side, when you think about consumption, with technologies like ChatGPT and all, what's also going to happen is there's going to be more of a confluence of the use of structured data coming out of your MDM systems and others with unstructured data. Because today, one of the biggest challenges is there's a lot of valuable information in unstructured data that is very hard to pass out. These LLM technologies make it extremely easy to start deriving insights from that, and the ability to derive insights from unstructured data, combine it with structured data to build really rich insights. I think that's one of the promises. Obviously, it brings with it the whole notion of the accuracy of data, the sources, the validity of sources, that all are things that will come into fore as more and more people start adopting these kinds of technologies for decision making.
That's a good point. It's garbage in and garbage out, and AI needs trusted, reliable data, right, to be provisioned.
Yeah. So from a consumer side, my dream would be I don't have to think anymore, because I need to understand 14 different domains. I need to know all the interactions between all those domains, and I got to keep that in my little brain. If I look at ChatGPT and the other, the generative AI, if I could ask the question and it's clean trained data and it's going to come back and answer it, and the other key thing, it's going to answer that the same way it's going to answer the analyst who sits 2 doors down from me. It's going to be the same answer to the person who's in India asking those questions, because that's what we deal with a lot. It's you approach your data from what you understand, and you query and you're writing and you're getting your data back. When you have it clean and you have it where you have this ability to get a result that everyone's going to share, then that's nirvana for me.
I'm just going to ask a question here. So how many of you all have had this question from within your own organization where the same data has given you all different results, and then they say it's a data quality issue? Like, how many of you all have faced that? And where everyone, yeah, right?
Very much, yeah.
So that's where Ryan was going, right? We can use this newer technologies to help, provide us with a consistent answer, to be going to be. Are we there yet? I don't believe so, but we will be there at some point in time. But that's the whole validation. And so if you start from the front end, where AI and all these other different new technologies can be leveraged to help us validate that source of that information, and then each step of the way to be able to answer some questions, which the business is constantly asking us, because always in my role, I get 3 people looking at the same data attribute and asking me, what is it? Or why is there a data quality problem? And I have to keep repeating the same answer, over and over again. Instead, I would have just clicked on the chat GPT and say, go there, read the answer. That's the answer. So that's what I'm saying. So that's where the future will be, to help us drive to more consistent, uniformed insights and information.
So I have a slightly different take on that.
Okay.
So the whole notion of one version of the truth is almost impossible to deliver within an enterprise setting. And for the simple reason that what your business considers a truth, or a business unit or a system, is not necessarily what the enterprise considers a truth, or some other system. Even if you think about something as simple as an organization's address, right? What CRM considers the right organization address might be completely different from what your ERP or your finance system considers the right organization address. So when you think about truth, it's truth in the context of a particular use case or system. When you think about an enterprise truth, what you have to worry about is, where is that truth coming from within the enterprise? The data is always there. It's there somewhere within the enterprise. It's all about how do you manage that. But to go after one version of the truth across the enterprise, I don't believe I've seen that ever work. And I don't believe it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely, you're right on that. I just meant the answer for a data attribute.
Yeah, it's just an authoritative
Yeah.
version
Yes,
of
it's
truth,
truth.
or it's consolidated version of truth, right? So, yeah.
But it's also, if you're asking that question from the context of sales and marketing,
Correct.
the source of that data needs to be different from if you're asking about that from the context of an enterprise.
Yeah, because customers can be at the enterprise level, but products can be at the line of business level. Your suppliers can be at the line of business level, right? So it's just, as you said, the context. Yeah. So someone said that IT provides them vanilla, but they're looking for strawberry or blueberry or mango. So how do I get to my strawberry? IT only gives me vanilla, right? So yes, the business context does matter from that perspective.
Perfect, thank you. And I guess on the flip side of the question from before, are there any areas to be cautious with AI in this process?
I think definitely when you think about AI and using AI in the context of making decisions, the quality of data matters, the source of that information matters, and it is very important to take into consideration the source of a particular insight that AI derives when you use that insight to make a decision. So I think it's very important to implement AI in a way that it's not just bringing you insights, but also the context, because then you can evaluate the data and the insights for what it's worth and have that level of confidence in that decision.
I treat it as it's a trust but verify.
Yeah.
You can get in there and you can ask a question, because in my group we had people, one person asked like how to calculate X. And it came back and she's like, well, I know that's wrong. And she goes, no, that's not correct. Oh, you're correct. That is incorrect. And then it gave another incorrect answer. So it's you can use it for speed. You can get some information, but you're gonna, you still need to do the due diligence to make sure what you have is correct.
Yeah, I was talking to someone earlier today, and they talked about even things like margins on deals. The way sales might look at how they compute margins might be completely different from the way the enterprise level looks at margins, right? So even profit margins or things like that. So there is differences within there that need to be accounted for.
And given that we're at Moody's, our clients need explainability of those models, right? So for regulatory reasons, you need to be able to make sure that it's not hallucinating, right? So, and that you're treating everything fairly. So I would say in that regard, ChatGPT is a different type of model. It's not a propensity or predictor. It's more of a conversational decision-making solution. But you still, I think, if you can get the sources from back and the scores in which they say that those are their ranked sources, that helps you as augment your decision to validate it, trust but verify.
It's responsible AI, right? So having some policies around the use of AI, understanding if there is bias in your data, understanding the lineage of where the data originated from, right? All of those are like basic principles of implementing responsible AI. So taking all of that into account is important.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Well, it'll certainly be interesting to hear that same AI conversation a year from now, because I think it's going to be wildly different, right? So, but just switching gears a little bit here. So how did you slay your dragon or overcome your greatest challenges here? So I guess we can ask the audience as well, first and foremost. So number one is ROI models driving. So driving the unrealized growth potential, customer employee satisfaction, cost savings. From the audience, well, let me read through everything first, and then we can do a quick poll here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number one is the ROI driven. 2 is engaging consultants for external perspective. 3 is C-level executive champion and funding source. And 4 is patience and incremental coordination of people, process, technology, and reference data. So in terms of having to overcome your greatest challenge, who would say they fall in the ROI bucket? All right. How about those who had to engage consultants or external third parties to leverage? Maybe a couple head nods here and there. C-level executive champion. Has anyone had success in that area or struggles with C-levels not being engaged?
More head nods. A lot more head nods.
Everybody. All right. And then patience and incremental coordination of people and process. So just trying to drive it through. All right.
So,
got a couple head nods here and there. So we maybe got some indications, but.
Yes, a quick.
Oh, Tony again. Here we go. I love it.
No, I mean, I would say looking at this list, like I don't know that these are mutually exclusive, right? I mean, I think these are all part of any sort of, anytime you're trying to bring in a new capability into an organization, I think, you have to check all these boxes to some extent, right? So I think they're all applicable, and none really, to me, none really stands out as like the one way to slay that dragon, right? I think you kind of got to hit all of them. So,
yeah, it's a
five-headed
trick
dragon.
question. I think we in my experience, just like in a video game, you're going to use every tool at your, every weapon at your disposal. And as a consultant in the space, I was often, the hired gun to come in to help them realize that, either come in at the beginning to help them realize that they need to do it and how to fund it, or they've struggled so long that they really need some help and execution. But either way, C-level executive needs to fund it, and not just fund it, but evangelize it, right? Because without that, your journey's going to be way tougher and longer, and with a lot lower success. And then I think the MVP approach nowadays, especially understanding that value is king, and if you don't get value quick, you're going to lose your audience, and you're going to lose momentum, and you're going to lose funding, and you just got to keep that train going. So all those, I think, are great examples.
Yeah, I was the same. I reacted to it the same way. I was like, oh, it's really all four. So, I mean, for me, it was, I had to make it someone else's problem, and had to make it a C-level person's problem, and show them that was the issue that's, keeping them up at night. And then with that, and I'd say not just external, not consultants, but what I found to be really successful was using the peer network. So when we were going through this and trying to tell the story of the why and how it's done and who does it, we engaged a bunch of companies that we similar space, and they were able to give us all of the the ugliness that they went through and what it took. And so when we were able to go and present what we were trying to do, we had a very credible story, and because it was from peer companies, that brought even more credibility, because it wasn't someone's getting paid to help you with that answer. So that was one of the true keys. But then it's really at the end, it's all the work goes into to getting the people in place and getting everyone comfortable. And if you get that, then you can build the momentum and really start to add in more and more areas.
Yes, it's just pitching the value proposition of the use case, right? So what is the business outcome? Are you going to be able to onboard customers faster or suppliers faster, right? So having clear understanding of those use cases, starting with few use cases that are critical and prioritizing those use cases, because you can boil the ocean. So to deliver quick value, you have to identify the top use cases the business will benefit from, and focusing on those use cases and driving those use cases, and doing a business value assessment of those use cases. And that's the way to pitch it to executives and get their buy-in and start the program.
Yeah.
There's actually a vendor here I can pitch. YDC actually does an economic model of the value of the data asset in the domain for an industry. So it's like empirical research-based data that can be used on top of your internal ROI models for either cost savings or growth opportunities. So you combine these external peers or empirical data from research, Gartner reports, we can give them a pitch, right? So you really have to have all the tools in your tool belt, and you'll find what resonates with executives most is money.
And see where the pain is. Many of them within their own business have a lot of pain. They come every day. So make them as part of the journey, because the more you have internal buy-in, you're definitely going to get the C-level executive buy-in, right? And the ROI is just going to come from them. And then start doing small, quick wins. Don't go for the big bangs. Just small, quick wins to show with them that, okay, by doing this, here's the value that y'all are getting, and make them speak about the value, not from a person who's going and doing it and saying, rah, 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 look what I've given. But let them speak about the value and give their opinion. And then you have to tweak the whole process a little bit. But the more internal buy-in y'all get in, the better all these different things are going to happen, to be able to drive that ROI for you.
Yeah, I'll share a curveball that got thrown at me when I was doing this. We were presenting to it, and the CFO, because we were presenting to the peer companies, and this is what they did, and she just stopped me, and she's like, "Did you talk to anyone who tried this and said it wasn't worth it?" What? That's a completely different way of having to think this through, and go, is it really worth the effort? What is so different that you need to put in place that you're going to put all this time and money and resources into addressing it? And that's, it helped us formulate the answers a bit better. And it's like, that's when we got to very tight, because this is your problem. You're not going to be able to grow revenue because of this. And if we don't have these particular piece of information available to us that's complete and accurate and current, you're going to make a bad decision. And so that was, trying to work through that. But that was one of the whoa, okay, I hadn't thought about it that way before.
That's actually a sales training thing I just went through, which is about understanding how to move from the status quo is part of showing that contrast between what you're doing today and if you didn't do something.
Lost opportunity.
There's so much more that you can understand from the reverse perspective. Okay, so let's not do this. What are the consequences of not doing it? That's another compelling. So CFO's right in saying that it budges people from the status quo, and it helps justify it. Yeah.
So someone earlier today was talking about why does CDOs churn from time to time, and that it's very easy to, well, not easy, but you can set up a process, but how do you ensure that people follow the process and drive accountability in the process? So I think that falls a little bit in some of these challenges that are up on the screen. I was curious if you all have any insights on ensuring that the program is followed, and that typically these are funded by a big project. It's driven by the company, but since this is a process, what happens after that project, quote unquote, ends? How does that accountability sustain?
So one of the things I've seen is that when we do all these projects, we don't bring the people into it, right? So for me, any of these projects is three legs. It's the people, the technology, and of course the process. But you have to think about the people, because all these projects are going to have a lot of impact from a change perspective. It's going to be change to the day-to-day work that they do. It's going to be change to the type of systems they're using, and they're having too much pressure because at the same time, as they're learning this, they have to also deliver that insight, right? And they need to understand what that insight means, because even a few changes in your maybe small data attributes could have a bigger impact on how they start thinking the decision making. So bringing the people into this whole journey as you drive this, I've seen much more success than just not thinking about the process or the technology. But people are really important to help drive some of the successful metrics. I don't know.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I don't think an MDM project ever ends.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to, because your business processes, your business needs are constantly evolving. And it's not just about the systems that we're using, but it's the process. It's new regulations, new competitive forces that come on the business. Different economic times need different economic models, different kinds of data to stay competitive. So MDM is extremely valuable, but it never really ends. And that's just an ongoing investment that a company has to make. And I think it's a vital investment for companies. And that's here to stay.
I would say that for me, it was really, to show it was in their own self-interest to follow the process and use the process. And so you have to come up with some good use cases and stories. And so I was saying earlier, like we went from a transactional company where, just selling units, and it was like, oh, if I sell X amount of units a month, I'm going to make my quota, to an enterprise level, to how is this company performing? So what happens is you agree up front that you're going to have so many people using the software, and then you use that, and then, well, what happens if the usage changes? So for reps, it turns into them needing to really understand at these very large companies what all the things are going on, because you can have, if you look at the total aggregate, the high level, it's like, oh, they're flat, or they declined. But then you're really using information and working through it, you're able to then pull it apart and show, oh, wait a minute, they're declined because you had a divestiture. And so you lost this amount of many units or users in there. Oh, but by the way, that company that bought it, that you had bought their company, they now have a license. So someone else in the company was getting credit for it, and they're like, oh, look, you're growing and someone else is losing. So really working through with especially our sales reps, and showing them how this new level of information is going to allow them to actually be more strategic in how they work on their accounts.
I would just add that hire change management consultants. Change is the hardest thing, and once you get there, the benefits, then you just have to communicate the benefits, right? And then it becomes a cultural change, or the new norm, basically. So everybody expects clean data, and it's no longer acceptable.
Utopia. Sounds good.
There you go.
Perfect. Any other questions, comments from the audience?
Rushabh, can I ask a quick question about what you were talking about with truth?
Sure.
Do you find that one of your biggest challenges is what you were saying a minute ago about this fantasy, if you will, about the golden record, right? I was joking with somebody at the conference earlier that maybe it's more of a silver or a bronze record as opposed to a golden record.
Right.
But you just put an interesting spin on it when you said it's truth within the context of what you're trying to accomplish, basically, whether it's the use case of the department. But is that a challenge that you find? Because there is this search for the golden record with MDM, and if you have truth in a CRM and then you have truth within the ERP, I can just picture, the head of sales sitting there with his CRM and the CFO or perhaps the CIO sitting there with his or her ERP, looking at, no, I've got the truth. No, you've got the truth. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So first of all, the notion of a golden record doesn't really exist. I don't believe it does, because information changes, and information changes things about something. Even if you think about business entities, you've gone in, you've mastered some business entities, and next thing you know, there's a merger or an acquisition that happened, or a divestiture, and that changed something again, right? So So this is constantly evolving. And the way you need to look at it is, and this is one of the reasons where external data also plays a very vital role in this whole process of data mastering, where the way CRM might look at a company might be completely different from a way your ERP system might look at a vendor. We have one customer that they deal with a lot of storefronts. And so when they have a name and address, they don't want it matching to a headquarters of that company. They want it matching to the storefront, and the headquarters could be the same location, right? So in the context of CRM, they want the storefront. In the context of finance, they want the headquarters because that's where they're sending those invoices, that's where they're collecting payments from. So very different thing. It's all about the golden record is suited for a purpose, but your system has to be able to tie these things together to say, oh yeah, these 5 storefronts I'm dealing with is part of this enterprise that you're looking at in finance system. They're all related. So within MDM, you have to have that notion of these are the related entities as well. And for an enterprise use case, the enterprise might say, oh, I'm going to treat all of this as one entity. And so their version of a golden record is different.
So I totally take your point, but isn't the reality that there is such a thing as a golden record? The question is of what? Right? And so when you say the relationships need to be defined, or you said the other, what you said related, relationships. And it's more than just these are other definitions. You need to characterize those, like define the attributes of so that you can get a golden record of when you're specific enough.
Right.
About, it's just like when you're asking generative AI a question. If you ask a vague question, you can get any number of answers.
Right.
But the more precise your question is, the more accurate it'll be. Is that?
Yeah, and that's right. And again, to me, golden record is always based on who the audience is and what they're looking for. So it's all audience based.
So I can add to that too. I've had to struggle with a lot of situations, and the context could be the location versus the legal entity, right? So if your grain of definition of golden record is at the location level, it's a little easier, but then you need the relationship between that location and its legal entity. And those relationships also can have differences in context. Like he said, sales could have one version of relationships where they group multiple global ultimates, they call them, at the top together, because that's how they treat their customers, but billing does not, right? So technology can step in and have multiple versions of hierarchies.
You can actually maintain those hierarchies within your MDM, and you can also synchronize data across ERP, CRM, and your MDM. So you're bringing those, different contexts to, different line of businesses. You can manage complex hierarchies within your MDM, and
multiple versions.
Multiple versions.
So I'm curious about the term hierarchy, because again, from a different perspective, like what sits higher in the hierarchy, I assume that could vary depending on your vantage point. So is the software structured as a hierarchy, or is it more of a graphy kind of thing where you can, like you don't want to, if you don't have the hierarchy right, you can still have the misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Right?
So to give you an example, if you go to a bank and say, oh, I want to open a trust account versus a personal account. You may already have personal accounts, but you may say, I want to link this to my trust, but I don't want these personal accounts part of my trust. Right? So there's different contexts, but the bank still needs to know you have a trust account, and these are the personal accounts underneath the trust accounts, but they need to have some way of knowing that these 2 personal accounts are not part of the trust. So the way that customer would interact with the trust account versus personal account is going to be different, right? So it depends on the context of the transaction.
Is it a hierarchy or is it more, like, you know,
So sometimes it could be grouping,
Yeah.
sometimes it could be hierarchy, depending on the context.
Context, it can vary.
Again,
yeah.
depending on the business context.
Yeah, in a true legal sense, there's an ownership tree, but that's not how you interact with a business. There's other dimensions to the tree that could be individuals or bank accounts, so it becomes more of a graph. So there are actually two versions of relationships.
And there are also LEIs per industry, legal entity identifier, specification for, at the industry level that's available in the market, that are being leveraged as well. So.
Here we're talking about different ways of person viewing the hierarchy, a salesperson viewing a hierarchy versus somebody else. But at the end of the day, a golden record is just to say, this is my basic ID for me to grab and associate relationships across the whole platform or the enterprise or even that unique thing. And here are the basic set of data. That golden record does not have huge data. It has I call it the skinny record, a very thin piece of data asset that can be able to connect the dots to solve multiple hierarchies because of the different ways you're viewing that, right? So it's just the definition of what you're talking, but end of the day, a golden record is just a set of data attributes.
It's a business card.
It's like a business card that has that is shared. That data can be shared across everything. It's the foundational data assets that you have across it. Then after that, then you can look at, okay, I want to look at a hierarchy this way for sales, or I want to look at a hierarchy this way for financial and reporting purposes. Okay, but at the end of the day, you're still carrying that basic record across that whole thing. So that is the golden record that we're talking about when we say from a master data or a data management perspective. Okay.
And I think it's important within an enterprise to have those varying definitions because it all goes to the adoption of your master data at the end of the day. Because if you're not supporting what a particular business unit or system needs and their definition of a golden record,
they're going to opt
they're
out.
not going to, right, they'll opt out, right? They won't use your MDM system. At the end of the day, your MDM system is only successful if all your business units subscribe to it and use it.
Next.
All right, great. Well, thank you for that. And this would be the last question here. Perhaps another trick question in terms of actually what's listed up here. So just curious to open it up to the audience or the panelists, the greatest benefits realized from going through this process, from engaging in this process. We have a couple up here of single source of truth, being enabler, client lifecycle, 360 view of counterparties. But aside from what we've all talked about already, anything from the audience that you see or that you do not see up here as a great benefit from going through an MDM journey? Or the panelists?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's better visibility of your data and your relationships across the enterprise. I think that's one of the biggest benefits you can see through getting that. And that's what I've seen a lot of. It's about understanding what data you have, who you're doing business with, for example, and getting a clear picture. Because a lot of times, there's a lot of siloed systems within enterprises at the end of the day. And you have to find an effective way to break down those silos or look across these silos so you have a deeper understanding of these relationships.
Agree. It's data standardization, right, across the enterprise and delivering high quality, reliable data that drives accurate decision making and, enabling business use cases within the organization. I talked about, client onboarding or supplier onboarding, having transparency into your supplier ecosystem, right? Delivering product faster, making sure that you're activating this information across different channels, right? So MDM plays a crucial role across all of these business initiatives, driving value.
Yeah, and it's also about impacting risk within the business because
Correct.
Let's say you're doing business with a particular entity and that entity is in 5 different systems and there is an adverse impact on that entity, whether it's a bankruptcy or something, one of these systems within the organization might get that information, but it doesn't trickle to everyone else. But by having MDM in the mix, you are able to understand that the impact is not just within that isolated system, but it's across multiple systems across the enterprise. So there is definite use cases that are critical for organizations.
Yeah, compliance and risk management
Compliance,
use
risk
cases
management.
also benefit from MDM.
Yeah, I put in a tagline, it helps you to decode risk and unlock opportunities, because once you start having that validated or the verified record and bringing that together, that skinny record, then you can be able to add other insights to it, look at the hierarchy structures and everything, and then look at it across to say, how can I decode my risk or unlock any opportunities so that I can, from a revenue perspective or from a reputational perspective, and look at it in different angles of that.
So this is a more technology-specific proposed addition. I'd love your thoughts. Is one benefit, given where we are right now with this massive interest and investment wave in language models, our research is showing that 30% of companies already are training their own language models. Another 20% plan to do so. So there's a lot happening now. Is one of the potential benefits that MDM can actually give you reliable data to do that? Could this be a massive forcing function for
agree.
MDM?
Yeah.
One would hope, but do you think that's going to happen?
I think it's the first part of the master data, which is the verification and validation. It can help right there, to be able to get better data, more trusted information, and help people feel more trusted in that entity that they're driving towards. So once they have that trust, then to add any other additional insight to help drive and decode your risk or look at opportunities. So I think it's right from the front end of the process, and it can be leveraged.
From an AI perspective, I think it's just another crazy thing that's happening to our world, right? Digital transformation was just accelerated during the pandemic. Everybody needed to pivot, be more adaptable, supply chain, customer experience, everything changed. Change doesn't slow down, it just gets faster, and now it's AI. And Malcolm did a really good job in his last session about, it's the new norm, right? And it's actually going to help us justify funding MDM. AI, if companies all in on AI, guess what? You can't do that without quality data inputs. So it's another example of how we can get justification at a high level.
Yeah. I think it's if you're training a model up against garbage data, you're going to get a garbage answer. Where if you have MDM in play and you're really structured and you're clean, you're going to get a good response.
You don't want a mini ChatGPT that you train yourself. You want something better.
Yeah, you don't know what's in your mind, but you really do. I think I was in a session earlier, and the person was talking about he has contextual models that he's working on. So it's down to a specific topic, and it was an example of he did. What is MS? And the answer came back Microsoft. And he changed his model, and he went, okay, wait a minute, no, this is in the pharma industry, and it comes back with multiple sclerosis. Okay. Two completely different answers. So it's like if it's data is put in correctly, it's in the right context, you're going to get a quick, great answer.
Great, thank you. Well, I know we're up against time here. We have a couple key takeaways up on the screen, just reiterating what we ran through today. But any closing remarks from the panelists in the last couple of minutes here, or any other anecdotal questions, comments from the audience?
I think in your experience, when we have MDM, I think it's really hard of, getting this integrated with the, the front end systems, right? Like whether it's an enrollment, that's the key. Mm-hmm. That's where all the things that you guys mentioned will reap the benefits of MDM if it is integrated. But I think there's a lot of resistance in the organizations because it's whatever the, case may be. What have you seen, in your experiences to, make that happen?
We have a very good example that actually we worked on where we integrated, the front-end system to the back-end MDM system. And the way we did it is because in the front end during onboarding, they wanted to validate that information, right? Because you're onboarding, you want to make sure you're looking at the right entity. For me, entity can be a customer, a supplier, or anything like that. So once they do that, we do a search. We did a search before create. So we checked in the MDM to see if it exists, and then we were able to bring better insights right up front in the process for them, which helped them. And at the back end, we've just passed that ID, which is the golden record ID, passed it to the back end because there are other use cases we wanted to solve at the back end. So that way they were able to. So by connecting the two, the front end and the back end, we were able to show the business how the value people are getting. So they didn't have to manually enter many of the things. We helped them automate many of that. So that reduced their time, and they spend their time more on decision driving, looking at some of the risk factors, looking at whether any of these entities were on the compliance or watch list, and those types of things, or looking at the financial statement, whether it's a bankruptcy, and what actions to take. So so they saw the value in that, and then they started to adopt that. And then they also saw that what we weren't creating duplicate records, which sometimes they were looking at it. So we did that, and it really proved out successful. Were there pain points where we did this process? Absolutely. Okay, we went through the pain, and I always tell everybody, if anything goes perfectly well, please relook at your process and please restart everything again, because that means we've not done a good job. That means they've not done good requirements and we've not done good a job. So you have to go through some pain. We have to all argue with each other and have these mood swings that we rush around, with everybody. But at the end of the day, it's fun, and we can show them value by doing the integration on both ends, And we did this successfully, I think, for multiple clients, clients, and whether it's so. I feel like we need to bring that picture together and literally walk through a process, because many a times I see clients, they don't do a process. They just try to solve something. But when you solve a small piece of the pie, you don't understand that the impact of it's going to have if you don't look at the entire process flow, right? Just don't solve it. Even if you're not attacking everything, look at the process flow, see where all you feel like you can do some improvements, and then put an approach like a crawl, walk, run or something, so that you can show them that, we've done this is the improvement, and then go through that. But we've integrated front end and back end multiple times.
Yeah, and it's not just about, so it's about building the trust in the process first before you get them to real time, but make sure it is frictionless. And so that is the most important part of adoption. And to make sure that it supports and adds value to the business. And we've been able to do that with multiple customers through our platform, where they've started with this whole notion of batch mastering of data, which continues to bring about latency, but then moving them system by system into a real-time world where they're able to get that data and really speed up their decision-making process. So they're not waiting for all this information to flow through before they can make some decision. They can do that in real time.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the value proposition is really activating that data, working with that line of business to see what problem does the data solve. Is it helping them run an effective marketing campaign, right? Or is it helping them spend less on suppliers? Is it helping them understand that these are the suppliers that provide sustainable products, right? So, and having the technology that can actually integrate across those, front end and back end and the business process applications, so you're able to share that information effectively with the line of business applications and enhance the business process overall. So.
Yeah. Oh, the other part that's worked for us is as long as you can give them controls on this process, that makes it far more successful. And that's what a real-time integration into these line of business applications really does. It gives them that control to make that decision on how something is mastered and how something can be used by them.
Well, great. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you all for attending. That was a useful session. Thank you all for speaking today, and have a great evening.